Welcome to the Learn to RV podcast, where road life meets real life.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Learn to RV podcast. This is the guys taking over. Give us a break. We don't do this very often. Ha, ha, ha. No, I started out with dad jokes. It's okay. It gets worse from here. This is basically breaking in the guys and typical banter that would be considered something around a campfire. So we're going to talk about some stories, some technical stuff, and personal life experiences and stuff that is important to the everyday RVer. So that's our goal today. So my name is Frank. I am Jennifer's husband, and we've been adventuring for 12 years now. So we'll just go from there.
My name's Philip. I'm the other Jennifer's husband, and we've been on the road for 7 years, actually almost 8, and loving every minute of it.
My name's Matthew. I'm Tosh's husband, and we've been on the road for about 2 years.
So I think we can kind of go over a little bit. I don't think we're going to try and stay on track of any specific order. I think what we're going to go over some of the basics, things that I can tell you from my personal experience, what I thought I knew, what I really knew, and then what I should have known is what I think every RVer kind of has when it comes to things of this nature. My background is a lot different than my wife's. Basically, I used to go camping with pop-ups as a child, and so I knew a lot about brake controllers and RV brakes and things of that nature getting into it. So I didn't really come in naive, not knowing much about it, but I did know. I knew by the end of day one, I knew more about brakes than I needed to know or ever wanted to know. As long as they worked, I didn't care. But that's the difference here. So I mean, what's your experience in this, Matthew, as far as before you started RVing?
With brakes, I had no experience. It's been learning ever since day one. I've never owned a diesel. I've never owned a trailer. I've only tent camped. So this was all new going into it. So I when we were first looking, I didn't even think trailers even had brakes. So I'm gonna be honest about that. But now we do.
Well, I was totally green. I mean, we'd never RV before, owned anything of it, and so I had to learn everything from scratch. And I can't say that we got it completely right the first rig out because we just didn't know enough of what to look for. So it was, oh, we like the layout. It's the price range. We'll do that. It was through time and doing it on the road that we learned, what you want, what you don't want, and just how important brakes can be.
Absolutely. So I mean, so when you guys first your first vehicles that you had, Philip, you had a Class A, is that correct?
No, we actually started with a travel trailer towed by a 1-ton GMC van that we
Okay.
had to install the brake controller in because it didn't come with anything.
I got you. Did you start right out of the gates with your 1-ton dually, Matt?
Yeah, that's what we. Yep, that was our first truck, and that was our first diesel. So that was we had researched and wanted a certain size rig, so we went for a 1-ton dually and didn't get the rig we wanted, but we stayed with the dualies, learning different things about diesel.
There you go.
And you're
That's what it's
future-proofed to go to
Yeah.
bigger rigs.
Yep.
Absolutely. So yeah, when I first started out, I was all like Philip and Jen. We started out with a 1-ton Ford Club wagon. We converted it over to be our hauler more or less. So we had to put a brake controller in it. The first RV we had was a 30-foot bumper pulled toy hauler, so a very heavy tongue weight. And I had a local RV tech put the brake controller in. After doing some research, I found what I thought was good at the time, and it worked for the entire time we had our van. I think it was like a Tektronix controller. Those are the ones that are very sensitive. It's got to be pitched the right way. It can't be too far in one direction or the other. But I can tell you, after having not hauled our weekend warrior because it was delivered by a friend, and then the day we pretty much launched was the day I made sure everything, well, I didn't make sure other than drive around the corner, that the brakes worked. As we were testing the brakes, I feathered the brakes. I didn't just feather them. We locked them up and almost jackknifed the van and the trailer because the trailer brakes locked up so hard. So that is definitely a personal experience that, as I tell people, make sure that before you roll anytime, always check your brakes.
Yeah.
It's always good to know that your trailer brakes are working. So always test them with the toggle switch. That's how I test mine.
Very important step.
Not necessarily a brake situation, but it's also one of those making sure your trailer is connected, whether it be a fifth wheel or a travel trailer. Fifth wheels, it's a little bit trickier because you got to make sure that everything is locked together in the hitch before you pull it too far forward and doesn't drop on the tailgate or on the truck itself.
Yep.
So it's definitely something you can walk around the RV parks and go, oh, they forgot to make sure it was locked.
Yep.
Definitely something along the first lines of defense, or at least practice of getting things moving forward. So you went from a travel trailer to a Class A. So this got a different type of braking system. Did you have how did you tow your towed with you? So like when you
Yeah, that kind of completely changed it, because with the travel trailer, we had a brake controller controlling the travel trailer, and those are drum brakes on it. When we went to the Class A, we used a supplementary braking system in the car that would respond to the inertia of the vehicle and apply the brake. It would also respond to when we press the brake in the motorhome, it would put the brake on there, but it could also work independently to stop the vehicle, because you've got this additional 6,000 pounds behind it pushing, and that can make a lot of difference. That, and there's a couple of systems out there on the market. They all have the pros and cons. We use the RVI brake system because it was integrated with both the brake, the TPMS system, and it did one other thing, and I'm drawing a blank on that now what it did, but it meant we only have one display to doing three different things up in the cab of the Class A. So that simplified things up there.
absolutely. So a lot of moving parts for braking and slowing everything down as a whole.
Yeah, and that required a little bit of finicking each time you put it in place to make sure it was set up correctly. And you would sometimes experience that it wasn't exactly working because it wouldn't engage, or you'd lose connection with it. It's joy of wireless connections.
Of course, of course. So since you're the only one with experience in it, what's the difference that you can explain to someone that's just starting out looking for jumping into RVing straight into a Class A that's going to flat tow or use a brake controller that works off inertia? I mean, what's the difference that you would notice, or trying to prep them for
Difference.
as far as that?
The difference is, if it's working, your stopping time is going to be much shorter than if it's not working. And that can be the difference between stopping on the line at an intersection or being pushed out into that intersection. And the results when you're pushed out are not good. They can be
No, they're
actually
not.
fatal.
Yes, absolutely. It gets
So
scary.
that is the difference.
Have you ever had an experience where that happened to you?
No, we did not. Our system worked, and it was kind of designed with fail-safes that even if it lost its wireless connection, it would still engage on its own if need be. It would just be a bit slower in its response. But we never had that experience.
I got you. Okay. Do either of you have a time-told classic story of brakes gone bad, where you lost your brakes or anything like that? You ever had that happen to you?
I mean, I did. Well, so we were down in the Keys, and we had gotten our something changed on the truck. The hitch and everything changed on the truck. And shortly after that, when we were driving, we started getting like the signal of in our truck of like the trailer wires are not connected or something like that. And we drove that a little while. I just kind of drove a little bit slower. I kind of did a little bit of research and I didn't check some stuff, which I should have. But what was happening was the wire between like coming out of the axles, because the wiring goes in the axles and out the other side, and then also wiring coming down from the underbelly of the trailer. It had in some spots it was worn out, and it wasn't something I was looking for when I was looking at wiring underneath the truck or underneath the trailer. And I was checking you assume that your 7-pin connection, if your lights are working, everything should be working. That was kind of naive of me. And so in the end result, the final place we got to, we ended up, since our truck was actually taking the brunt of the braking, like we ended up blowing our brakes on our truck and our calipers and everything. And so we had to replace all of that. And then we went through and, thoroughly checked the wiring. Um, Frank, you came up and helped with some of that. And so, getting to know the system a little bit more. Luckily we didn't, have an accident or anything like that. We didn't run through an intersection. When we noticed we had an issue, we drove way slower than what we wanted to, just so we made sure that things were safe and we weren't going to be a hazard on the road or things like that. So there's not just the drum, the brake drums and all that stuff. There's everything that connects the electrical, got to keep in mind of. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's wearing out or anything like that. So
Right. Yeah, those situations can get pretty dicey. Uh, um, Phil, your current setup, do you have drum brakes or disc?
Well, on a travel trailer, we had drum brakes. On the fifth wheel, we have disc brakes. That was something I made sure we got this time around because everybody I talked to said they were way better and the way to go. And we had bad experience with the drum brakes on the travel trailer. I did not want to mess with that again. And so I made sure we got that. And it is a world of a difference.
What was your bad experience with the drum brakes on your travel trailer?
So we were in Colorado and we were coming down out of Horsetooth Reservoir, and it's a big downslope coming down out of the mountains. And my wife, she always does the driving, and she says something's wrong with the brakes. It's just not behaving the way it is. It's not stopping like it should when she applies them. And we slowly worked our way down to the bottom of the hill where we could pull out. And when we got out and walked around on the passenger side on the front tire, I believe it was, the brake pads and stuff were hanging completely through the rims. It had completely come apart. And what had happened is on those drum brakes, there is a seal that keeps the grease that greases the wheel bearings out of the brake compartment. That seal had been ruptured due to a burr on the spindle of the axle. And so all the grease had gone into the brake area and just totally destroyed the brakes. We were lucky that after a lot of calling around and false starts, we found an RV dealership that could get us in that day and had the parts and could get us on the way. But it took a lot of work.
Yeah, that's finding situations when you're out there on a travel day, moving around, and finding someone who has parts and available that day. That is, the stars are aligned and God is in your favor. So
yeah.
Yeah, I
I've
mean,
been in a couple of situations like that, and it's people are like, how do you handle these just terrible stories, and how did you react? I'm like, well, you just know that you're not in control and move forward.
yep.
I mean,
Keep
it's
making the phone calls.
yeah, absolutely. So I mean, so I get that, and I have not converted over yet to disc brakes, but I can say that everybody that I do know that has them, there's two major brands that are out there that are pretty much controlling the RV industry, and they're both good for their own right. But I would say, just like any other RV product that's out there, find the one that works best for you and one that's going to fit it out. I mean, I believe the two brands, Dexter does one. I think the other one is Kodiak. But both are good names in the industry, and both have reputable products. What I can say is I know all about going down steep grades and learning the differences on how to control your braking and things of that nature, especially with some of the, I would say, fingernail biting, um, white knuckle driving situations I won't say I've stuck myself into, but got, I would say I was pretty much a greenhorn. This is back in 2013. We'd only been on the road for maybe 5 or 6 weeks. This is where one of my favorite stories I like to tell people. It was definitely exciting, not for the other people in the car, but for me it was, because um, I was the one in control and I was not in control. We were in Yosemite. We were going from Bridalveil Falls over to Tuolumne Meadows. They have a RV park on that side, and we had just missed the last spot, and then they had a lottery. We missed the last spot again. So in order to prep for Tuolumne Meadows, the fact that I had a toy hauler, I had the ability to fill our water tanks up to 110 gallons. So I was like, do it, 110 gallons of water. I have a 25-gallon fuel tank, filled it to the rim. So I was ready to stay stationary for at least a week. But then I had to move, and I didn't even think nothing of it because I was like, I'm a newbie. I know what I'm doing. I'll just drive. Well, on the backside of Tuolumne Meadows, you go down the Tejon Pass. It's 8 miles at 8%, no guardrail. It sometimes it's 4 lanes wide, sometimes it's 2 lane wides, but and there's a couple of lookouts. But so I had in my one of my finer moments in my life, I pretty much had a temper tantrum and acted like a child and stomped away and was like, "Fine, we're leaving. I'm taking my RV and we're gone." So I start rolling down the back of the hill. I didn't even make it a mile in, and I'm like, okay, the brakes are feeling kind of squishy. That's not a good sign. So I start pumping them. I build back the pressure back up. Then I start to see, I start feathering the brakes on the trailer, and then all of a sudden I see puffs of smoke like I'm sending smoke signals. I'm like, that's not a good sign. And I still have about 6.5 miles at 8% to go. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to try and downshift and slow down. At this point, um, the only thing that was a godsend was the fact that there was no traffic either going down or up. So I'm trying to figure out how to slow the RV down. At the same time, look at my car full of my kids and my wife and go, I've got this. Let's keep everybody calm. I don't need anybody screaming. So I just white knuckle it and I'm driving along and Jennifer notices my hands and she's like, is everything okay? I'm like, no. And that's about how I said it. It was not raising my voice or nothing. And she's like, oh my gosh, kids, make sure your seatbelts are tightened. And I was like, are you serious right now? All you can think of is tighten your seatbelt. We're going to be a burning ball of flame going down the mountainside, and you want their seatbelts to be tight. I said, okay, I'll see what I can do to prevent this from happening. So one of the things that I had started to do was um, I used to ride skateboard as a form of travel. I don't do a lot of tricks. I just like longboarding everywhere. So I'm like, how can I slow myself down? Well, I start cutting across all 4 lanes of traffic both ways. So that starts to slow me down. So I'm not going from 60 to 50 to 55 to 50. And now I'm like, the brakes still aren't there. I'm still pumping the brakes as hard as I can. I'm hitting the emergency brake, and that's starting to slow me down. After about 2.5 miles, I was able to get it down from third gear to second gear. And then I went through one parking or outlook area, kicked rocks everywhere because I was going so fast, came back out onto the road. I can only imagine what this would have looked like through if somebody was filming it. And about another half to 3/4 of a mile, so another cutback out, there was another parking area where we were able to stop and get the vehicle stopped. Now, if anybody's ever been on the eastern side of Yosemite, there's no signal. There's nobody there. There was a couple of tourists, and as soon as they saw me kicking rocks and smoke coming out from underneath my car, it was like um, I they just disappeared. They just vanished. They all left. They're like, "Oh, I'm not getting involved. I'm running away." So we let the brakes cool. Um, didn't have cell service, couldn't call anybody, so we just put it in first gear and then just kept the engine and feathered the brakes the entire way down. This was a Sunday in August in 2013. I remember what day of the week it was because by the time we got to the next town, which was Bridgeport, they have one gas station that has a one bay garage. I stopped in there. I was like, "Do you have anybody that can look at brakes?" He left 30 minutes ago, and we're closing in 5 minutes. Do you have any products for brake? And they're like, "We have brake fluid." They're like, "Do you know what kind of brake fluid you need?" I don't care, whatever you got. She goes, you can't cross contaminate the types. I was like, right now it doesn't matter. I don't have brakes. So I ended up putting the brake fluid in it. We drove through town at a screaming 15 miles an hour, stayed the night, and then there was no auto parts stores within 50 miles. The garage that was in town, I called them up the next morning, and they're like, "We're booked for the next week, and we don't do brakes." So We piled back in the car and we drove from there to Carson City. And I think that's probably another 150 to 180 miles. And without even cracking the brakes open, I get to Carson City. There's a county or state park just to the north of the city where we parked the RV. I disconnected everything finally at that time. And then I went to a local AutoZone, bought the brakes and everything I needed for the car or for our van. Went back to the park, and right when I disconnected everything, the brake shoes themselves just came apart in powder. And people are like, "How did you do that?" I didn't do it. It was very stupid of me for me to drive that far. I said, but the only reason why I'm probably here still today is the God Almighty has saved us, and he's got a lot of guardian angels over me, and they get overtime pay, I'm sure. But as I tell people, when you come into situations where you lose your brakes and you're in a situation like that, you have to try and slow your brain down from panic mode to thinking about how to slow your vehicle down, feathering the brakes, understanding how your emergency brake system works. Because yes, you have the brake pedal, which is like a parking brake, but most people aren't aware if you have the foot pedal that you have to keep your hand on the lever to keep it released so that it doesn't lock it if you're trying to use it to slow you down. But if you're trying to lock it, you're just trying to stop the vehicle, just push it to the floor and leave it alone. But if you're trying to slow your vehicle down because you're going so fast, that's the other option, is to control it that way. But that was probably one of the scariest situations when we first hit the road. After that was in Nevada, so after we got the brakes fixed, everything seemed to work right back to normal again. But we had to rebuild everything from the ground up. But
That's crazy.
yeah, it was a scary story, scary experience, especially, and some of the kids that are still on the road with us now are probably not they don't have as much memory of it as our older kids that are in their 20s do. You ask them and they just shake their head and they go, "Yeah, you're not the smart one, Dad." I'm like, "But you're still alive." They're like, "Barely, barely."
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy.
RV Roofing Solutions is a nationwide RV roofing company with mobile installers.
One of the biggest factors and benefits of the RV Roofing Solutions system is our product is a low VOC, which is helpful for those who are sensitive to chemicals. It's better for the environment, and it actually works better for the RV roofing industry.
It's a great place to find a quality product.
www.rvroofingsolutions.com. So now that that was in the back in the days when we had the brake controller and we're hauling with a 1-ton van. Now everybody here, we're all the dually club, so it's got the brake controllers built in. And do you guys have engine brakes with your systems?
I do not. I'm probably the only one that does it because I'm the only one that doesn't have a diesel. So without a
So you have
diesel,
a
you don't get an
gasser.
engine brake. Yes, I've got the big 7.3 liter gas Zilla. And it works really well. I mean, it pulls it like heck. I mean, we never have any power shortages. That's one feature we don't have, is the engine brake.
So let me ask you a question. So it's not just about braking as far as stopping the trailer, but stopping everything when you're going through mountains and stuff like that. So what is it you do with the gasser if you're going through high grades? I should say, can you tell me what you see your wife do?
Um, she's going to keep it in low gear. That's the secret right there. Is it's got a 10-speed on it, so it's down as low as she needs, and that's going to hold it back. Because honestly, when you're on a low grade like that, you don't want to be on the brakes at all.
Right.
Minimal. You want it with that low gear and let the engine hold it back.
So one of the other things that I think is important to talk about as far as a complete package with slowing your vehicles down, do you guys run with a tire pressure monitor systems?
I do.
Do you have a
Say that last
TPMS?
part again.
Do you have a TPMS?
It helps in situations, but doesn't necessarily. I mean, it'll tell you if your tire's getting hot or something like that.
I got you. So I can tell you. So I've had more brake experiences, and they're both on the same route in this past year. So one with TPMS and one without. So one we're going south from Rock Springs, Wyoming into Vernal, Utah. This was in the summer of 2024, where we're headed into Vernal, and there's a lot of cutbacks on the road coming in. And we had two separate vehicles at the time. So we had our 2017 Ram, and as it's coming down, and I've got the regular. I wasn't running a TPMS system for the truck or the trailer at that time. I have yet to date to have a blowout or anything like that. Only by sheer luck or paying attention to people on the road saying, "Hey, you have a flat tire or no wheel." We had that happen. To where we were coming down, and we were actually coming down to stop to let the brakes cool. And there's a rest stop that it overlooks this area. I can't remember what it is. It's some kind of chemical ingredient they put in soda, but they mine it out here in this part of Utah. And as we were pulling into that parking lot, my front passenger wheel caught on fire because of the brake dust was so hot. Um, and so when we pull in, the brakes are hot because of braking as we're coming down the hill. I do have a turbo with an engine brake, which is for the Cummins. It's called the VGT. The problem with mine was my VGT, or not that, but just my turbo in general at the time had been intermittent. So I was actually having to feather the brakes and use a lower speed to come down, and I was still coming in pretty hot and heavy. And then when we got to the stop, I was like, I see the flames. I run and grab my fire extinguisher, run up there. One of the things I learned about using fire extinguishers, especially after all the training I had in the Marines, was before you go into a firefight or a fire, make sure the tool you have is going to work. So I pull the pin, I squeeze the handle, nothing. Squeeze the handle again, I shake it. You can feel the contents in the fire extinguisher, nothing. So I'm like, okay, great. What's the next thing I can do? I'm like, well, I have water, but um, how am I going to get water from our holding tank to put this out? So immediately I went to our holding tank drain, pulled the cap off, and just started water flowing into cups, whatever I could have the kids so they could. We just kind of started an old traditional fireman's line of running back and forth. That was a scary one without TPMS. This past year in TPMS, I was going north from Vernal up to Rock Springs, and we're in the cutback section again. This time I'm with TPMS with a temperature monitor, and it actually gave me a warning that the brakes were hot. So we immediately turned off to the side of the road to let everything cool. And if you have temperature monitors on your wheels, you'll notice that if they're hot, once you stop, they're going to get even hotter. So our temperatures, I think when it first started, the alarm going off was 130. They reached 165, which is like, for a tire, I'm surprised it stayed on the rim. Two very good tools to have. So a tire pressure monitoring system, and definitely understanding how to do that when you're going through the back roads.
I mean, this is not brakes, but we have TPMS, and the times it got hot, it was because we had bearings going out, and we happened to catch it and not lose anything. One of the first time it happened was when we were pulling into a site in North Carolina, I think, or South Carolina or Alabama. I don't know, one of those. And I happened to notice it like 2 miles away from the camp that one was getting up to the 90s. I mean, I know that's low, but all the rest were in the 70s still. And we checked in, and then we were getting ready to turn to get up the hill to go to our site, and like we just heard all this screeching and all that, and it ended up that we got parked and camped and everything, but like my wheel was cocked out, and like when we took the tire off and pulled off the castle nut and everything, like the bearings just fell out like BBs, and then the second time, so after that experience, we added the hub saver, if you guys ever heard of that, and so the second time we started getting heat issues and stuff like that, it ended up being bearings again, but it happened to keep it a little bit more intact than what it had before. And I don't know if it was because of that, or or if that hub saver just helped with that. But that was the only times we've seen our TPS help us out with that. I've never seen an issue with brakes, but of course during that first experience, our brakes were shot on that specific tire, and we just changed them all.
That's a good call.
Luckily, we weren't on the highway. We were already in a camp and moving at 5 miles an hour, but it could have been worse earlier, you know.
So, do you know if you're what type of drum brakes you have on yours, Matt? Is yours
Mine's just electric.
on?
It's electric. They were manual adjust before, and then we added the self-adjusting. And I think you adjust them by some little back plugs in the back, and you just click it up or down depending if you need to loosen it or tighten it. And, you know, when we were putting them on, we really did a lot of the adjustment before we put the wheel back on, because it's a pain in the butt to get back under there with wheel still on. And then the self-adjusting is supposed to, like, as you kind of go forward and backwards with your trailer, it's supposed to kind of help bring the spacing back where it needs to. You know, I'm still fairly new with it, so you know, it's kind of they're working now, but
That's good.
and
That's good.
I learned about hearing you know, with the electric drum brakes, I learned about, and this was from you, Frank, just hearing about, you know, when you're hitting down the gas pedal, or the brake pedal, you know, hearing the hum of the electric hitting the brakes. You know, that wasn't something I was really aware of when I was checking stuff, but that helped us, you know, that's kind of another check that we do as we're getting ready to leave a camp spot or leaving a love stop or something like that. And then even if you don't have your truck, like we did on the first time that our brake wire was an issue, we didn't also have our truck either. That was in the shop. And learning how to take off the emergency plug and check your brakes that way too, because you know, trying to see if they spin or not with the wheel off or whatever. So, you know, it's kind of a learning thing. There's a lot of resources out there to learn that stuff, and um, that helped out a
So,
lot.
yeah, I totally understand it. So, I mean, the reason I was asking was you basically. So, I have done both with the self-adjusting and with the manual adjust. Um, I think if I was a weekend person going out periodically, I would probably prefer to have the manual adjust. But being out there full time, it's just it's not a nicety because you have more control if you actually manually adjust them. But I think the self-adjusting ones, I think they wear out quicker. And when it's kind of like I look at it as a lithium battery, more or less. Once it dies, it's dead. There's no bringing it back. There's no telltale warning that I've ever experienced. I'm sure there is. I haven't been privy to or learned yet, but I'm always learning.
Yeah.
Now, I would like to bring it back over to Phil. So, because Phil having the disc brakes, definitely a lot more difference between that. So I'm assuming it's electric back to the trailer, and then it's hydraulic from the controller back. So what are some things
Correct.
that you check on a travel day or the day before as you're getting prepared to go? What are the things you normally check?
Well, on the travel trailer, the one thing we're going to check is make sure the brake fluid is at the level it should be, and the reservoir on the trailer. Because if it's low, it's going to affect the brake performance. The other thing we do, and this is usually on move day once we were hooked up, is we'll connect the fifth wheel into the truck. We'll do our tug test there to make sure it's securely locked into the hitch. And then all jacks are retracted. And then my wife, since she's a driver, will perform a brake test where you will hold the brake controller, basically squeeze it, and then allow the truck to roll forward. And you're looking for that resistance that says there's a huge trailer behind you that's not going anywhere. If you don't feel that resistance, you know the brakes aren't reacting. And there are a number of things you still have to look at as far as the maintenance side of those brakes. We had to replace in the first year, our entire set of brake pads because we got a defective set from the factory, and essentially they had fallen all apart. So when we took them out, like half the pad would be gone, and it just kind of disintegrated. And so we detected that largely because our wheels were like very dirty. If you looked at the rims, they're like putting a lot of brake dust on. I was like, that's just too much brake dust. So that's another thing to keep an eye on is, if you're seeing unusually dirty rims, there's something going on wrong. And they identified it for us that there was indeed a bad batch of brake pads, and they replaced them.
That's nice.
Other than that, not really much other than we have to check. Some of the nice things, they're less service intensive as far as keeping them, when you're getting ready to move.
So I do have a
That's what it
question as far as um, the disc brakes go. Do they
Mhm.
work in both forward and reverse?
As far as I know, they do. I have to verify that with the driver, see if she's noticed that. Um, I think you mentioned it. That's a good question. I don't know if in reverse, since that be controlled by the brake control, I don't know. I'm wanting to believe it is, but part of me is
I
saying
mean,
maybe it isn't.
if you back up and if you're in a travel trailer or the traditional drum brakes, they work by the inertia of the wheel moving forward and the magnetic hitting the outside drum. So when that makes connection and it's rotating, it pulls the arm back, which causes the brake shoes to go out. So if you're going backwards, it's not gonna the brakes aren't applied.
Right.
So it's only going off the
Doesn't get the
brakes of
input.
the vehicle. So as I talk to some people about, hey, I'm going to be like, if you're going to be camping mostly in the mountains and you're going to be backing up your RV in steep areas, you might want to make sure that you have disc brakes and not drum brakes. And they're like, wait, why? Or if you're trying to go up a steep incline and you start rolling backwards, the trailer brakes aren't going to help you.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm pretty sure they work in both ways because the only thing they do, they're waiting for that electrical impulse, and then they engage. So they won't care whether you're reverse or forward.
That's good. That's good. Definitely something to look forward to for those people who don't have that.
There's a huge difference. We've noticed a huge difference with them. Even better than our Class A setup, which was disc brakes, towing a vehicle with disc brakes. But it's just a huge difference with the system.
I got you. So I guess we're gonna have to shake our pennies together, Matt, and we'll have to be cool like Philip here, and get some disc brakes.
Yeah.
So when it comes to your brakes, do you do them yourself, Phil, or do you pay someone else to do it?
It's something I usually don't do myself because I don't have the tools to do it. I mean, you need a jack to jack it up, and some blocks and stuff to put under there while you're working on it. I don't have that. So I generally bring somebody in, usually a mobile tech, if I can find somebody in the area that can work on brakes. Not every mobile tech will touch axles or brakes.
So that's one of the things I've experienced in our travels, especially in the line of work that I do with RV roofs. There are a lot of techs that are out there that will turn 180 and run the other way. You're like, hey, you're an RV tech. I'm like, yes, I am. I'd be more than happy to help you. I have a question about a roof, and then they're gone. Or I have a question about brakes or suspension. They're like, no, I don't do that. As I tell people, especially those who are learning to hit the road, the adventure is out there, the ability is there, but you have to be one of two things: either not afraid with apprehension of conquering the unknown, and that's even if it has to do with vehicle maintenance, or the unknown of what's around the trail around the corner. That's all part of the adventure. The but I can what I tell people also is uh, it's not hard to do. You might need the tools. The problem is if you're a full timer, where are you going to put the tools when you're done?
That
If you
is a
can find a
problem.
place you can rent them, because there are a lot of like O'Reilly's or AutoZone places like that will rent you the tools you need. But then finding the RV parks or places where you can stay that's going to allow you to do that type of work, which is also
Yep.
key in that type of stuff. And I could say that um, in personal experience, and especially helping Matt going from, hey, I need to change out a spare tire to, hey, why weren't you going to tell me your brakes weren't working? How did you know my brakes weren't working? Because I see that the cables are snapped.
Yeah.
What cables?
Oh,
Those cables are important.
yeah.
But
Those
I
wires
think it
behind the
comes.
wheels.
I think it comes to like your mechanical aptitude. Like, there's a lot of resources to learn, which I'm learning, but I'm not a mechanic for any means, and so if you can come up with the money and take it to like a trailer shop or someone that can work on that stuff, that's probably the safer bet, because in the long run, it's going to make everyone safe on the road. But again, don't shy away from learning if you feel like you can do it, or even just hire someone to help and you watch or put your hands on it while they're working on it. That's what we did back in Alabama when everything went bad there. I helped kind of do the first couple tires, and the guy that was doing them, he used to be a trucker and he did this stuff all the time, and I kind of watched and had hands-on experience, and then did the other side myself, and I felt confident about it. I'm not 100%, but you got to start somewhere. I'm not a registered tech or anything like that, so don't call me to come help change your bearings or anything like that. Don't trust me with that yet. But there's stuff to do DIY if you can't afford it, and sometimes then you got to book an extra week or two at the campsite you're at just to make stuff get done. That's just something you got to do. Doing the full time. So
Yep. Roll with the punches.
I think one of the greatest things about the RV community itself in general is it's almost like there's just a camaraderie of what's the international signal of, hey, I might need some help, or I'm trying to fix something, and I'm over my head in this. All you got to do is break out the tools and lay them out, and just take a step back and look at what you're trying to work on. And a campground that might have like 3 or 4 rigs in it, all of a sudden has like 40 people all standing around looking at it with you, going, "You need help? I know how to do this. I got the tools. Give me 2 seconds. I go get them." And
Yep.
they
it's one of
intentionally
the
walk their dogs by your rig to see what's going on.
yes, they do. I remember this was a funny story. This is not having to do with breaking, but uh, in our early days, I had to do, in the Marine Corps. I was changing duty stations from Kentucky to California, and we were driving along Route 66 in Missouri, and the travel trailer that we had purchased. I'll go into more detail about stories about that later. But we got a flat tire on one side. It was a single axle, so I pull over, change it to put the spare on it, and then start rolling again. And then I made it maybe another half mile, and the other spare popped, or the other side popped. So now I don't have a spare, and I'm like, we're doing a duty station move. I've got 2 of my kids with me. Jennifer's looking at me going, "What do we do now?" I'm like, the only thing I can do is drop the trailer and go get 2 new tires. Again, we're traveling on what day of the week? A Sunday. What's not open on a Sunday? Most tire shops. I was like, all right, so I'm gonna go over to the shoulder of the road, and I'm going to drag this thing, whether it be on wheels or skids, to the next exit. When we get to the exit, it just so happened to be that there was an RV park there, so they can see me pulling in, and I have no wheels. I mean, the wheels are there, the tires are officially gone, and I pull into their site, or their driveway. It's all gravel, so they weren't too upset, but the tongue is digging into the ground, and they were like, "You need to stop right now before things get ugly." I was like, I just needed some place where I can get to stay for the night and get some wheels and get this thing fixed. They're like, and then they kind of look at me. They see I had a Department of Defense sticker. That's back when they still had those on cars. And they're like, "Oh, you're active duty military?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Hold on a second." It's like some guy snapped his fingers, and there was like 10 guys around like a pit crew. Trailer was lifted, and they had me parked in a spot, and the truck was disconnected. And they're like, "All you need to do now is your camper's level, everything's set up. Just relax, man. You're okay. We got you." And I was like, what just happened?" But we ended up getting 2 new tires from Bass Pro, and the next day they had them already ready to roll, and we left and had clear sailing for the rest of the trip. But not necessarily a brake story, but definitely a story of the camaraderie of RVing people coming alongside each other to keep everything moving. So I mean, so I do know that your wife drives for you, Phil. Does Tasha do driving for you, Matt, or she just do the parking?
Uh, no, she has driven. I think just lately, which I mean, like the last few months, I've done the bulk of the driving. I think it's just some personal stuff. But when we first started off, I think we traded off probably like every few hours or something like that. But when it gets to like really dark outside, like I can't drive unless it's early morning. I've already, slept through the night. Like when it's late at night, like it's even if I don't have a trailer hitched or whatever, and we're just driving to and from like a city that we just hung out at, like she's got to drive because I can't drive at night. So, but she does really well. I mean, she knows how the brake controller works. She knows downshifting, going down hills. She's fairly confident and competent in that stuff. So I'm fairly safe when she drives in it. So
That's awesome.
what about you, Frank?
Um, mine's a complete different demographic. So I have never really let Jennifer drive, although I've tried to persuade her to. So I mean, that's the word I would do it. But there's a lot of, I mean, we've been married 31 years, and there's a lot of intricacies to our banter that goes back and forth. It just happens to be one of them. Um, in the early days, it used to be like, you know how many times I can count? My wife got up and made me breakfast before I go to work, and she's like, "Well, if you would go to work sometime in the morning and not before midnight, I would make you breakfast." Um, but Jennifer has. We used to have a fifth wheel Cardinal. She did drive it one to go dump the tanks and fill the fresh tank back up, and I believe that was when the time frame that uh, we officially met you guys, which was out in Quartzsite. So that's the only time I've ever think she's driven the vehicle. She has since started hooking up and disconnecting the truck, and I'm giving her the classes and trying to build up her confidence. But it, I think she's completely capable. I think it's just apprehensions that's kind of keeping her in her seat. But I think with women like Tasha and Jen around, I think Pennsylvania is going to be a great time because she's not going to have any choice but to drive out of there, or I'm not leaving.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, film all that too, right?
I might have to wait for that till I get to the Keys. I mean, but she might not want to leave either. So,
Just have her hang around with my wife for a bit and she'll pick it right up.
of course,
Never want to give it back to you then.
I'll have to sit in the passenger seat and knit.
There are
Good
advantages
times.
to it,
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I think we did cover quite a few things today about breaks. Trying to break in ourselves into the podcasting world.
Yeah,
But
thank everybody for putting up with us.
yeah, thanks for tuning in to the Three Guys Banter and Breaking Banter, and lots of dad jokes and crazy stories of how we survived steep mountain passes. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, here we go.
Yep. Thank you for watching.
Thanks for riding along with us today. Until next time, keep the wheels turning.